Tony, I remember when I first came to the gallery back in the late 80s, seeing your wonderful small mezzotins, radishes, Christmas ornaments, and the color was just so dynamic. And even today, I see, as you've progressed over the last 30 years, and I see the color, that same color that I saw in those mezzotins.
I think, Judy, doing the mezzotints, especially where the black is so prevalent and necessary for the background, it doesn't have to be black, but it's dark. So there's a comparison of values such that almost anything, almost any color looks vibrant next to that black. If you were to take the black away and put the color next to a neutral color, then it wouldn't quite be the same. So what that's done is helped me in the new works, these new pieces like the one behind you here where I use black. I use that black as a contrast element, and I think the black sets off the white and the light values, and it sets off the color as well.
When was it that you joined the gallery?
It's probably back in the 80s, possibly the late 70s, and at that time, as you mentioned, I was doing work that was mostly prints, and I was enjoying it. I loved doing it, but the work was small, and it was very difficult to make a living doing work that way.
Right.
In that small amount. So I started doing paintings,
Right.
and little by little, Ann Haygood at the time was the owner, and Ann was reluctant at first to let me show the paintings that I was doing, and looking back, I can see why now. You took over the gallery, and on a lark, I came by. I had sort of dropped out of the gallery for a while, and I came by one afternoon, I think, or morning, and you allowed me to put a piece in your front display window, and I suspect before too long you sold it, and from then on we've had a great relationship, and you've been good in giving me the latitude that I need to go where I want to go with these things, fall flat on my face sometimes, and explore the different areas that I'd like to explore visually.
Your progression as an artist has in some ways paralleled the evolution of the gallery during my tenure, the last 25 years, because I remember that day we were looking at some of your paintings, and you had some that were, I would say, they were representational in a sense, but it was a little minimalist.
Yep.
And then you were just edging into transforming to the hints of abstraction.
Exactly.
And then you moved to the structure, more geometric work, and now from that structure to what I think is real spontaneity.
Yeah, it's thank you. It's more lyrical, and it's less more spontaneous, less structured. For a while there, I was doing work that had a lot of line in it,
Yes.
and I was dividing the picture plane a la Fibonacci or the golden mean, and I still think about the golden mean a lot when I do proportional thinking. When I think about, for instance, where the placement is of something, I think about it in terms of how large it should be in relation to the canvas, to the two-dimensional plane, and within that, maybe breaking that down even more and having another mini painting within that section of the painting, and using the same proportions, which are very, very elegant proportions, and we see in nature all over.
I see music too in your work.
Exactly. I listen to classical music, to Latin music, tango music, jazz, all kinds. I love it all. And there is this stream running through so many things, and this leads to something else about connections, which we should talk about. But there is this stream of form and structure that runs through music, architecture, art, visual arts that is, and they all seem to be grounded on this structure that is so elegant, and that's what we see in nature in the Fibonacci numbers, where we see it in the chambers of a nautilus, or in the tines of a pine cone, or in the petals of a sunflower. It's all evidenced in that structure. And I still use that to some extent, but I'm more fluid with that now. And I don't worry about it as much as I used to, and I think you gave me that ability to have that freedom, and I appreciate that very much. You allowed me to take chances, and as I said earlier, to fall flat on my face and to fail at times. And as a result of many failures, I've had some successes and hope to have many more.
Many successes.
Let's hope so.
Well, when I took over the gallery, we were, in terms of what we were showing, was still very rooted in the landscape.
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated that your work is still rooted in the landscape, although it is very abstract and very contemporary. And that's followed where the gallery has gone.
Exactly, and it just fits me to a T, and it's such a good match. I still like to go out. I don't go out into the woods as much as I used to. I took my grandson hunting a few months ago and really loved it, and all those thoughts about when I painted outdoors started to come back. And I thought, well, I don't really need to do this the same way anymore since I'm painting abstractly. But those images are there, and the colors and the shapes and the relationships of the parts of the landscape are still there. And you see that in so many of my paintings. You'll see in this piece, for instance, water, or in this piece, water. The blue is symbolic of the water, the green of flowers or grass or whatever. And then the nuances of those colors and using the complementary colors. All of those things I use in the landscape, but probably with less structure and more, as you say, spontaneity than there used to be.
Your color has always been one of your real successes, but the color really moves in recent years. There's movement to it, that lyricalness, that I think is what really helps connect people to the work. The viewer, when they see it, they can feel that.
I alluded before about coming back to connection. I'm glad you did, because yeah, that's a strong part. I think almost every day about connection. That's for me this year, and probably from here on out, that's going to be probably the key word. I've been reading and sharing some thoughts with a friend who is a follower, reads a lot, and is taught part of the philosophy of Teilhard de Chardin, and he has this concept, which also Veransky, a Russian philosopher, had, and Teilhard picked up on it, about the noosphere and how the people on Earth and the interaction of all of us on Earth is growing and evolving toward an ever yet complex society and thing, and growing toward what he calls an omega point. Well, within that is the interconnections we all have and how we relate to each other. So, as I say, I think about these things a lot, and when I think about them, I think, why am I here? What do I need to do? How do I go about doing it in the best way, using the talents that God gave me? What can I do to best connect with my fellow man? So from there I go to, okay, I'm a painter. It comes very naturally for me now. I didn't start till later, but I feel good. I'm passionate about it when I'm painting. And what excites my eye? What gets the juices flowing? And color is high up there. Shape is another one, but color probably wins out all the time. And it's just so important, and that's how I try to connect. So the strong color is important. It doesn't mean I won't do a piece that is more tonal, has colors that are within a narrower range of the scope of value and luminosity and saturation and so forth. But for the most part, I like to use bold colors.